Perfect, crazy.
Yeah.
Tell me, what we have here?
Yeah, what we are showcasing here is automotive automotive services, and with automotive services I mean fuel, parking, weather, speed cameras, but also EV charging locations. And these are online services, so we can also expose more rich static content. And on top of that, we can also have dynamic data like fuel prices for fuel, parking availability, EV charger connector availability. All that data is exposed via the online services as well. These are relatively traditional services which are available already right now in vehicles, many times it's very difficult to find that information in a navigation system. Usually it takes 5 or 6 button clicks before you have that information, and it's a long list, for example for fuel prices, and then still it's difficult to choose what to take. And so that's why we developed personal recommendations, and we showcase that here for fuel. In the case you would travel from Las Vegas to Salt Lake City, somewhere along this route you need to refill your vehicle. But what if you start to expose the vehicle sensor data like fuel level, the cruising range to the cloud? Our personal recommendation can actually learn the driver behavior. So when is a driver refueling? And initially there's a default comfort zone area where you typically refuel. Say my wife is more at the 100 kilometer zone, but I'm more on the other end, so really an empty tank almost. Those preferences are captured by the service, and so it will adjust that. So if your preference is 100 kilometers, it will start to suggest in that area.
Perfect.
And other learned elements are the brand, fuel brands, the detour time. So how much time are you okay with to detour in order to pick your favorite brand? Or have a lower price, those are learned components. And how that works, we try to visualize in this picture. Here you see the fuel stations, which are along those lines, and those are depicted here in the numbers. And in this case, I selected already a few times a Shell station, and you see that the brand is the Shell brand is preferred. So the first one is a Shell station, but also the third one, and it has a more preferred state for the driver. And then it will start to recommend those fuel stations. We can demonstrate that another time by clicking a Shell station and see how the graph will change. What is important, and that is all taken into account. Another aspect, apart from these elements of brand, price, and detour, there's another learning component into the service, which is a mobility graph. And the mobility graph learns the default destinations of the driver, so the home address, working address, but maybe there's some stopover because you need to drop off the children at school. All these kind of elements are learned in a mobility graph, and it will utilize that data in order to improve the personal recommendation. And that's been shown in an example on how that would work. Here you see different users, a student, a mother, a businessman, and the different locations which are learned by really the behavior. And we might pick the businessman and see what kind of learned routes they're available. And you see in this case there are 2 routes, really learned routes, so what this businessman has been driving in the past, and that might be dependent on the time of the day or the day of the week, and that's being captured. In this case, the fuel recommendations will make sure that if your fuel tank is empty and say you're close, you're taking this route, and then the fuel recommendations will be done along that specific route. And so again, you had fuel, parking, EV, personal recommendations, and on top of that, we're providing a departure alert service as well. And so, which, based on this mobility graph, will alert a driver. So, hey, you want to go to the office, but you will be running late because there's heavy traffic. So either you take an alternative route or you stay at home. So all these kind of experiences can be built together with this smart recommendations, personal recommendation components.
Perfect. So, one question. So, is this an integral part of the SDK, the HERE SDK, or is this something that you can add on as well?
These are standalone services, so to speak. Of course, you need to bring in the vehicle sensor data, but they can be used with any kind of either SDK or software, navigation software solutions. But elements of these you will find back in HERE Auto solution, and so our complete navigation guidance solution. So that's one aspect, and they can be potentially integrated with MS SDK as well, so mobile SDK. So they are not per se integrated, but you can utilize those. Yes.
And one question, another question is, you're storing a lot of data. You're storing a lot of data on location, on preferences, and all that. So is there a consent from the user, or are there any privacy issues over here? Like, you get explicit consent from the user?
Yeah, that's a very important aspect, obviously. So privacy is a main concern for HERE. And so as much as possible, we will anonymize data. But indeed, in this case, these will be stored data and associated with a certain user ID. And it's up to the OEM who implements the service on how they want to involve a user into this as well. In order, for example, to give opt-out options, yes or no. We take care for the cloud's protection of the private data.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Thank you.